Hi, I'm Trisha at Club Scrap. Welcome to the Toile Card Kit Workshop. We are going to have a great time together today, learning some techniques and trimming and scoring all of the paper required to make a dozen cards. It's really pretty cool. And just to give you a preview of what we're going to create together during this time, we're starting out with raw 12 by 12 papers, and we'll make a set of 4 of these smaller cards, 4 double Z fold cards. These are really fun. And then a set of 4 slimline cards. It's going to be great. And we'll just take it step by step. Now I've got my Toile Card Kit here. I've got my instructions, a copy of those. You don't need to read them necessarily, just follow along with me in the video. You'll be fine. And I also have my Accordion pocket file to help me stay organized. Now as we work together, if you do not have this Accordion pocket file, totally okay. I do have a starter kit and a workshop video to help you make this item. And I also have just a video workshop that you can grab so you can make one of these for yourself. So I'm just gonna take the lip of this organizer and place it underneath my trimmer. And as we trim the papers and panels for our cards, we're gonna put them in one of 3 pockets, A, B, or C. I usually put my scraps in pocket D. Now, if you're not using the organizer, you just simply need to have a little bit more horizontal space available for you to maintain your 4 piles A, B, C, and D. It's as easy as that. I'll take my instructions and put them to my right. I've already set aside all of the little ribbons and embellishments from the collection, and let's just sort the paper into the order we'll be trimming it so that it's easy to stay organized as we start flowing with the workshop. I'll start out by searching for 1 sheet of the dark blue paper in the set, and then I'll grab a light blue, then gray, and finally tan. So that's 1 of each of the colors in the set. Let's repeat that. So dark blue, light blue, gray, and tan. And then you've got your 2 text weight prints. They're so beautiful. And lastly, we have the 2 Cutaparts. We'll start with the one that has the row of larger sentiments for the slimline cards, and then the one with all the fussy cut birds and butterflies on there. Put that face down, and then flip everything back over again so that the dark blue paper is right on the top of the stack. Now I'll put my stack back to the left, and I like to keep my instructions at my right, and I'm going to take this sheet of dark blue paper and determine the grain direction. And it's important to do that because down the road we're going to be folding this paper, and it's really nice to fold paper with the grain versus against the grain. And I spent probably 15 years of my paper crafting career not really understanding paper grain, so if this is new to you, don't feel bad. It's okay. So to find the grain with a square sheet of paper, I like to hold it by an edge, wiggle it, and listen to it. It's very quiet this way. Now I'm going to compare to this neighboring edge here. It makes a lot of noise, right? And it's also quite stiff. This way, much more floppy. Now in the instructions, you'll notice when the grain direction matters, there's going to be an arrow pointing, now in this case, up and down. So I want the paper to dip easily in that direction. It's the easiest way I could think of to make sure we're all on the same page, pun intended. Now I'm going to take the light blue paper and repeat the exercise. The noisy against the grain, the quiet with the grain. Place it down in your trimmer so it bends easily from the top of the trimmer to the bottom. Now if you only feel comfortable working with 1 sheet at a time, that's totally okay. We're actually going to trim 4 sheets of paper just like this, so working 2 at a time. It saves so much time. Also a quick note, if I'm going too fast for you and maybe you're just beginning, feel free to adjust the playback speed on your YouTube settings. It'll say playback, and then choose 0.75. That'll slow everything way down until you feel comfortable with the process. So I'm going to stack these 2 sheets together. I will lift up the blade on my guillotine trimmer here, which I really like. And if you don't have this unit and you're interested, grab the link in the description below. So I'm going to start at 11 3/4. So I find 11, and on the trimmer there's a column every 1/4 inch. So I can go 11, 11 1/4, 11 1/2, 11 3/4. So by going left, I grow that number. Then make sure your paper is flush at the top edge of that guide here. Push down on the clear bar to stabilize both sheets of paper, and then go ahead and make that slice. Now granted, this is really heavyweight paper, so I feel like I do have a little bit better success when I'm standing. So if you're able, stand up while you're trimming if you can at a counter height table. It works so well. Now I'm going to slide this down to 6 1/4, so that's 6 plus 1 column to the left. Stabilize again, slice. Rotate the paper so it's horizontal, leaving the other pieces lay where they landed. And then I'm going to trim at 11 3/4 again, and then 9. Again, stabilize each time on that clear bar. These two pieces here are going to grow up to become card bases. So I'm going to set them aside to be scored. We'll file them a little bit later on. Then I'm going to take the little rectangle that fell from the end of that larger piece and trim it at 6. Just taking a little bit off the end. And these two pieces go in pocket B, as in Bravo. And there were some small little strips that were created. I'm just going to set those aside as scraps. Next, take the remaining larger sheet, trim it at 8 1/2. Set the large pieces aside to be scored. Then take the smaller rectangle that fell and we'll cut it 4 3/4. The larger panel here, pocket A, alpha, and all the little sniglets that are left are scraps, or you can use them at your discretion. Now I'm going to repeat all of that with 2 more sheets of paper. That's the magic of this assembly line. We can consistently trim and then swap out all the colors to make a set of 4 cards. It works so well. So this should dip top to bottom and dip with the tan from top to bottom. 2 pretty heavyweight papers, so make sure you're holding that bar firmly when we trim at 11 3/4 and standing, hopefully. Then slide down to 6 1/4, stabilize. Then rotate so it's horizontal and trim at 11 3/4 and 9. Okay, here we got some card bases for our little pile that we're accumulating. The rectangle we're going to trim at 6. That goes in pocket B, Bravo, and we'll get rid of our little sniglets. The next larger piece here we'll cut at 8 1/2. That's going to make some card bases for us. So set it aside to be scored. Pick up the smaller pieces and we'll trim at 4 3/4. And this goes in pocket A. The remaining pieces into the scrap pile. Next, I'll grab the next sheet of dark blue and check the grain direction again. I want it dipping easily top to bottom once again, even though we're working on a new formula here. And I will also do the same with the light blue. Remember, it's quiet and floppy when the grain is dipping top to bottom like this. That's what I want. And this whole new formula here, so new numbers. Our first cut is at 8 1/2. So it's 8 plus 2 columns to the left. Stabilize firmly. Now we're going to rotate and make some interesting cuts here. We'll start at 10 1/4 and then 7. And this larger piece becomes our slimline card base. So I'll set it aside to be scored. And the next rectangle that fell, I want to trim at 8 1/4. That will be a panel for our slimline card in pocket C, Charlie. Lastly, let's take this long strip. We'll trim it at 6 3/4. Put this piece in pocket C, Charlie. And there's a little square that fell from the end. Add that to pocket A. And you have some little sniglets again for your scraps. Not bad in the scrap department here. You have another long piece remaining. We'll trim at 11 3/4 and 9. Nice whole number there, 9. Take the 9-inch piece and add it to your score pile. And then the rectangle that fell, you're going to want to trim it horizontally. So the measurement of it on the width right now is 3 1/2. I want to make it 3 1/4. So trim horizontally at 3 1/4 and place it in pocket B, Bravo, and get rid of your teeny weeny scraps. And moving on to the gray. I love this beautiful bluish gray and the tan, making sure everything's dipping top to bottom. We'll cut at 8 1/2. Then rotate the 8.5-inch piece and cut at 10 1/4 and 7. All right, this gets set aside to become a card base. The long piece here will trim at 8 1/4. Pocket C for this guy, C Charlie. And you have some more scraps, little guys. This strip, the skinny one, we cut at 6 3/4. The long strip, pocket C, and the square goes in A alpha. Now we have this remaining strip here. We'll trim at 11 3/4 and 9. This needs to be scored, so set it aside. And this needs to be trimmed. So we'll rotate it so it's horizontal, and we want to cut at 3 1/4. That goes into pocket B, bravo, and all of the little sniglets can be set aside as scraps. Moving right along, here we are at the text weight print. We'll cut at 8. Nice whole number, I love those. Rotate and trim at 9, 6, and 3. And taking all 4 of these pieces, pocket C, Charlie. Now for this last piece from the sheet, we'll cut at 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. Grabbing all of the pieces except for the little scrap. So these that are the same, pocket A alpha, and this is a scrap. I'm moving along to page 2 in the instructions. We'll trim the remaining print at 9 1/4 and 6. Rotate, cut at 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. Okay, gather up all of these narrow strips here. There should be the same for pocket B, and there will be one piece as a scrap. The next strip, this is 3 1/4 by 12. We'll trim at the same numbers, 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. Now, if you haven't been using a guillotine style trimmer, keeping up will be really, really difficult. So again, this trimmer is really the workhorse for the job. There is a small scrap here, and incredibly, this entire strip is left for you to use at your discretion. So I'll just set that aside. We're almost done with all of the trimming. We need to separate these individual elements. And to make that job as accurate as possible, I've added some instructions to remove the paper outside of the marked cutting guides on each corner. So the first time I make a slice off that edge, I'm going to shoot for cutting almost all the way to those marks, but not necessarily exactly at the mark. When I rotate now for the other edge, I can more easily line up that mark both at the top and bottom edge of the blade on my trimmer. You can see it just a little bit better. When I rotate again, I can see well. Rotate again, get this side. Sometimes I look to the left to find my 12 to make sure I'm creating a 12 by 12. And then my final rotation here gives me a nice edge on that. So I'm going to pick up all those little scraps and throw them away and place this back in my trimmer, making sure that the larger pieces of art are on my left. And all I need to do is trim at 8. And then rotate and cut at 9, 6, and 3. And these are going to become the inner sentiments for our slimline cards in set C. So place that in pocket C. And then this next strip will trim at 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, and 2 3/4. These are going to be the inner sentiments for card set A, alpha, plus there will be a scrap that I did not use. Next up, you can take the remaining cut apart sheet and start trimming the outer edges. Keep rotating until you have the perfect 12 by 12. And the reason I have you do this last cut is because the commercial trimmers just don't get them accurate enough. And because of the accuracy needed, I just have to have you do that last step. Grab your little scraps, throw them away, and we'll begin with this piece situated with the dragonfly in the upper left corner. And be careful here. I want you to trim at 9 and then 6.5. Now rotate. So that's another area we have to be careful that you don't try to cut here and then through those other pieces of art. Rotate, making sure that happy birthday is on the right here. And we'll cut at 11.5, 10, 8.5, 7, 5.5, and 2 3/4. Rotate the piece that's in the trimmer right now and cut it at 3 1/4. And you've got 2 sentiments for the inside of card set B. Bravo. You should have another pair you have to trim once again at 3 1/4 for card set B on both of those. Then you'll have 4 really skinny little sentiments for pocket C, Charlie, and there's this little piece of artwork. It's a scrap, or you can use it if you want to. Pick up the next strip. We'll trim at 9, 6, and 3. Gather the 4 pieces, pocket B. Finally, we have, make sure the squares on the right here will cut at 10.5 and 9. I'll take scissors and just kind of separate the section with the cute little butterflies. If you want to trim them individually, you can. And then same with the birds. We can separate each bird, and you can see that Jacqueline designs. Jacqueline's my designer. She is absolutely amazing. She's been designing our collections since 2009, which is pretty amazing. The butterflies go in pocket A and all the birds go in C. Then you have these last 2 little square pieces that can be trimmed at 1.5. Now for something this small on a trimmer this large, it's still not a problem. Trim at 1.5, and I just hold it there. 1.5, and then just slide that out, and you've got 4 pieces for pocket A. Lovely. That was your last cut. Amazing. So lock your trimmer blade, support your accordion pocket file if you're using one while you remove it from the trimmer. Then from now on, lay the pocket on its side, and we're gonna grab our Scor Pal. Do you remember that big pile of pieces that I had you set aside to be scored? Follow along with me for all of the best practices for scoring. So we're working our way backwards kind of from the instructions, starting with the scoring instructions in step 2. We're going to take this narrow piece. It's right now 3.5 by 9. Place it in your Scor Pal horizontally and score at 3 inches. Now take the paper and flip it. So you're going from bringing the bottom edge up to the top and score at 6. Now this paper is really heavy, so when you are scoring, make sure that you are pressing firmly so that you get through, a nice scored line. Same thing on this gray piece. It's 3. Flip the paper bottom to top and score at 6. Now if you're too light with it, you can always make a second pass. There's nothing wrong with that. If you dig a little deeper in that score pile, you're going to find 2 more pieces that are the same size. So let's find those and score again at 3. Flip from bottom to top and 6. On the dark blue here, I'll score at 3. Flip the paper bottom to top, 6. And then these pieces go into pocket B. Bravo. Next up you have the piece that measures 7 by 8.5. Be really careful here, making sure that this goes into the Scor Pal vertically. So the long way, like the portrait style. It should say 7 here, 8.5 here, and score at 3.5. Again, pushing firmly because this paper is like a 110-pound cover. 3.5 on the vertical, 3.5, and 3.5. I like to hold my tool like a pencil. And then these are going to be your card bases for set C. Next up, we have something that measures 8.5 by 5.5. Let's score horizontally at 4.25, and there's a little asterisk for that on my Scor Pal, and I'll try to add a link to this Scor Pal in the description to the video. All 4 of them, and be careful. So I did the gray and the tan, and now I'm going to do the light blue and the dark blue. So those were like a little bit down in my pile, but it's the same size. Check 8.5 by 5.5. Score at 4.25. That's right down the middle. So not only did we cut this paper so that when we fold later, we'll be folding with the grain, but we're also scoring. And that just makes a neater fold. These 4 pieces go into pocket A. And then finally, we have a card base measuring 9 by 6.25. This one needs to be in here horizontally again, so the 9 should be up here. And we're kind of repeating what we did earlier. We're going to score at 3, and then flip it and score at 6. Repeat for the next one. Score at 3, flip from the bottom to top, score at 6, 3, flip, 6. And your last one is 3, flip, 6. Let's stack these all neatly together and place them in pocket B, and we can get rid of our Scor Pal. The first step we can do is remove everything from pocket A because we're all organized, and it's so nice that we have things in separate piles rather than in a great big stack. Can you imagine sorting through all these pieces from pocket A, B, and C all in one pile? I used to do it that way. Okay, so here we have our card bases. I'm flipping them over so that the bumps of the score lines are facing up. And when I fold to create the card base, I want the bump on the inside of the card. That is the opposite of the way I see a lot of people doing this, even professional card makers with 150,000 followers on YouTube. So make sure the bump of the score line is on the inside of the card base when you fold. And then I just burnish with my bone folder. I'll try to add a link to my favorite bone folder in the description as well. I really like this one. I procured it kind of recently and I just love it. Okay, so now I have my really lovely card bases, and now we get to do the deal. So I'm going to deal out the colors. Let's start out with tan, and then we've got dark blue. Those are going to be horizontal. Then we have a gray and a light blue. Let's take our other panels here. We've got from the pocket a light blue, a tan, dark blue, and gray. Then let's add a print, 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 print. How about a sentiment? We've got hello in blue, hello in tan, and then this lovely light blue flower, and then a gray flower, and then we'll do a square. Gray square, light blue panel, tan panel, blue panel. Let's distribute a butterfly fussy cut to each one. And then I'm thinking of you today. Tan and gray, however you want to distribute it. And then there are so many things you must be feeling today, but what I hope you feel most is loved. Both so sweet. We also have a little bit of work to do with our handmade paper. Before we get started with that, I'm going to have you take the smallest envelope that came in your kit and place the contents of this fourth pile into the envelope, the third pile into another envelope, the second pile, and now this is what we're going to use to make our card together. The other 3 cards are made the exact same way. Rather than take all that time together on film, I'll have you do that on your own, and you'll have all the information you need to make that happen. Let me show you how to turn this paper into a panel for the card with a beautiful torn edge. Alternatively, you don't have to do the torn edge. You don't have to use the panel at all. You can just simply trim it. In fact, I'm going to show you how to trim 2 of the panels that way, and then the other 2, I'll show you how to do the torn edge technique. I'll trim this vertically at 4.5 inches, and then rotate it so it's horizontal and cut at 6.5 and 3.25. Okay, so then I can set that trimmer aside again, and I can add these 2 panels to envelope 3 and envelope 4. But I do like that torn edge, so let me show you how I did that. You'll need the handmade paper. It's not a must, but if you happen to have a water brush, it really works well. Place the paper wrong side up on your work surface, and I'm going to just remove about 1/4 inch from the edge here. So I'll put my ruler over that measurement, and I'm going to run some water from my water brush onto the paper just to loosen those paper fibers. Then I'm just going to tear toward me. It does a really nice job if you hold it. Look at that pretty torn edge on this side. Isn't that nice? Okay, then I'm going to remove it from another edge. And I do like to work with the paper wrong side up, because then you don't have as much of a, I don't know, you can kind of see a little bit of a straight edge. Okay, so I've made it wet, and I'm going to put some pressure there. Tear it toward me. Then I'm going to tear the other end. I'm going to make it so the piece ends up being 4.5 inches approximately. So with this larger ruler, I can make that happen without too much effort. Otherwise, you can combine rulers or just measure it. But I'm just going to take this little end off so that I can create a piece that's 4.5 inches. Again, tearing with the wrong side facing up works great. Okay, now I want a piece that's 3.25 inches wide. So 1, 2, 3.25. Make it wet. I learned this technique a long time ago. I think it was from the Grummers. Arnie Grummer, man, he was a legend in the handmade paper business. They still make their paper presses to make handmade paper. So now you have this beautiful panel I can put with this card. And then while I'm at it, I'm just going to make the final panel. And again, that's 3.25. Probably is even best if you can let it soak for a second, just so those fibers relax and they're happy to separate. Okay, now we have a beautiful panel. I'm going to add that to my top envelope here and get rid of my water pen and my ruler. One of the things we can do quickly is take my regular scissors. I have one for paper and one for fabric. This is my paper scissors, nothing real special. It's Teflon coated, so if I end up cutting something sticky, it doesn't, give me any hassle. So I cut along that silhouette line and good to go. Okay, so now I can do some nesting. I'll take my adhesive here and add the printed panel to the handmade panel. Get a nice reveal there, all that gorgeous edge. And I'm just going to add my adhesive to the paper rather than the handmade paper nested on there. Okay, so then I have this beautiful gray twill. I'll stretch some out across and trim it so that's a little longer than the panel itself. Next, I'll take some tape, and I usually keep my tape in a little sand-filled dispenser, and just wrap this around like bottom third of the card, going to the back. Okay, and then I can actually go ahead and center this onto the card base. With a 3/8 inch reveal, this is going to be centered. So I like to use my grid ruler to count cubes. 1, 2, 3. 3 inches, 3 cubes from the bottom, 3 cubes from the top. And then I know it's centered and not tilted or running downhill or uphill or all that good stuff. Next, I can take my little hello and nest it onto the gray. And we have strips of foam adhesive circles. I like to use them in halvesies. So if you want to add a little dimension to this, you can. Completely optional, of course. And maybe a disadvantage to making it lumpy is that the post office tends to not love lumpy cards and they like to charge you extra. So if you want to refrain, these aren't all of that lofty, which I like, but I do like that little bit of a pop. So I'll add this into over the ribbon. Next we have this sweet little butterfly, and one of the things that I did with this is put a pop dot on the wing and then bent it a little bit so that it would have some dimension as well. And you can even add a little bit of bookbinding glue to the body and add him. Isn't that the cutest thing you've ever seen in your life? I love it so much. Okay, so let me put that away. And then we still have the inside. So we'll add I'm Thinking of You to the inside. If you wanted to, you could take like one of these like little pieces of, let's just do it. Let's take this. And even though it's longer, it's okay. I'll just add some adhesive. And add it to the card. I know it's long, no problem. I'm thinking of you today. Just take scissors, or you can bring it to your trimmer and just lob it off. Isn't that pretty? Oh, I love this card so much. You'll make one in the dark blue. What did I do on the inside here? Oh, look, I added a little bit of a scrap there. It's probably this guy. Yep. On this one, so pretty. Added the butterfly to the inside. And then same for this guy, the vertical card. Butterflies on the inside in a sweet little spot right there. Love, love, love. Okay, that was super easy. Let's clean up our work area and then take everything out of pocket B. Okay, I've got everything out of the pocket. Let's distribute our card bases here. So we're gonna go with tan first again, and then gray, blue, dark blue, and light blue. Next up, we should have a long scored piece. So onto the tan, we'll add gray, then tan, light blue, dark blue. You'll find some longer, narrower panels here. We'll go dark blue, light blue, gray, and tan. Also a longer print to each one. Next, you'll find some colored panels, and you're basically adding a missing color. So we'll add light blue, dark blue, tan, and gray. Each one gets another print. Now, how about some sentiments? Let's add hello, dear, and the gray in all of the universe. Here's another hello, dear, with in all of the universe. Then a light blue, sending love across the miles. There's only one you. Sending love across the miles. There is only one you. Take the medium-sized envelope. Here's the largest, card number 4. And the reason I do this is the 4th card shown in the instructions. So I want that on the bottom of the pile. Then our dark blue will slide into the envelope. That'll be next in the pile. The gray card base is second in the instructions. So that'll be the next card you'll make. And you're using the instructions, you'll see exactly how that comes together. So here we go with our card. What you want to do now is find the bump of the score line and bury it inside a fold. And then I'll burnish that with my bone folder. Then here is the other bump. So I'm folding back on that to make a little bit of an accordion. Now you notice that I'm just double checking to make sure everything stacks and lines up properly. That's what I'm always going to be looking for. There's also the gray, same thing. We got 2 score lines here. Here's the bump. And the bumps actually help me guide you with these flips. So here's the other bump, and it folds the other direction, like a little fan fold, or to make what I would call a Z fold, okay? So situate the card, the larger card base, so that you've got the free edge, a mountain, a valley, and then a free edge. And the same will go for the narrow gray strip. Easy assembly here, my friends. I'm going to take some adhesive and add the printed panel to the left side of this card. In other words, the free edge, and then the next fold will be a mountain. I hope that makes sense to you. Add the other larger blue panel to the other end of the card, so adjacent to the valley. Look at that. I grab this now, and let's take the light blue panel and add it to the left section that's adjacent to the mountain. The print is going to go into the middle section. Now there's a smaller one and a larger. The smaller goes to the left, larger to the right. So hello dear is left, centered, and sending love is on the right. Beautiful. Now let's attach these. So it's going to be attached something like this. I've got to get you a measurement, and it's 1 1/4. So this ruler, this little 2x8 ruler, does have a 0 center on one of the edges. So I'm going to center this, and the measurement from top to bottom is going to be 3 1/8. And then I want to be 1 1/4 inches from the left edge. That's probably the most important measurement, is being 1 1/4 inches from the left. I'm going to flip this over and just add adhesive to the left edge of this initial panel here, the one that has the hello dear, and center this top to bottom. That puts me at 1 3/4 top and bottom. So I only attached it to this left flap. Okay, now let's kind of close this card, and then this gets tucked in kind of. And the idea is that this will fit perfectly into our envelope. So close the card and flip it over. Open this panel. This is the area here, not past the edge of the card, where you put the adhesive. It's that simple. I really hope that seemed simple, because it really is simple, and just close on it. Now the card lays perfectly flat for mailing, opens and displays like that, and fits perfectly into your envelope. Now, as far as decor, we have these cute little butterflies. Now they're metal and they're quite sturdy, so if you're worried about getting these into the post office, you can kind of smush them. And my big secret to smushing all at once was just running them through my die cutting machine so that it would just flatten them like a pancake, and it did. Now I was able to do this. It might just take a little bit of force. There, I got him pretty flat because I just don't want to deal with the post office. You could add a little bit of wax cord or something on there, but I just like to use my bookbinding glue to add a little adhesive to this, and then you're going to want to let that dry. But that's where I use the darling little butterfly charm. There's also a generous amount of this satin ribbon, nice and little. If you want to make a small bow, usually my bows look crummy at first, and then I just shape them a little bit. Then I can take my fabric scissors, trim them away, and then I can add it just with a little bit of bookbinding glue to the bottom of the card. Once that's dry, that's not going anywhere, and it's absolutely darling. Okay, so on this one, I used the twill on the gray card base. Same for the remaining 3 cards. I just put a simple little knot in there, so it's still relatively flat. There's my flat butterfly and the 4th and final card from set B. Aren't they sweet? So I'll clear my work area one more time, empty everything from pocket C, and we'll make our final slimline card together. With everything out of the pocket, let's once again start with our card bases. So this time we'll do first a gray, then the tan, how about a light blue, and a dark blue. Next up, we'll take the next largest panel here. We've got the dark blue here to distribute the color, then light blue, gray, and tan. Easiest one is to distribute the print because it's kind of all the same. Then there's a narrow set of panels, so tan, gray, dark blue, and light blue. Then our outer sentiments. We have 2 vertical, so we'll do the happy birthday here, and then 2 horizontal, forever and always in the tan and gray, sending you a hug so it's there when you need it. Okay, inner sentiments. You are as amazing as a dress with pockets on both of those. I use the blue, here's to the moments and memories that make life sweet, and then you're always close to my heart. And of course, we can do the fussy cut bird to each one. Your kit should include the 4 slimline envelopes, and sometimes what I do here is slide it in vertically. And the cool part is if you do this method and you get this far, you can travel to a crop and hang out with your friends and put your cards together. And all of that prep work will be accomplished even before you leave the house so that you don't have to concentrate. I think it's best to do this trimming when you're home alone or in a quiet place and you can focus. And then when you're at your event, you have all of this prepped and you can be one of the most productive people there. I don't know, when I don't follow this method and I just make 1 card, I can spend probably the same amount of time as I do making 12 cards using this method. I hope you find it to be really efficient for you. And if you do, please leave a comment below so that I know that you're with me. So let's take this gray card base here, find the bump, and bury it inside the fold. Give that a little burnish. Now be really careful here. Don't put anything on that card base quite yet. I'm going to take the printed panel, and usually I go 3 little swaths of adhesive for something this long, but this adhesive goes a long way. Okay, and then I'll also have you nest this onto the tan. That's a safe bet. It's usually the application of ribbon that causes me to think through carefully like what I adhere when. So I'm going to take a piece of this gorgeous ribbon here with that lovely French style design on it and stretch it across the middle of this nested panel, flip it and adhere it. And I'll use my cellophane tape for that again. You could use washi tape also, whatever you prefer. And you know what I'm going to do the gray. I always check the grain direction of the ribbon as well so that it's going in the direction it wants to go. And I'm going to do a little nest. So I'm going to take this and nest it right on top of the blue. That'll be so sweet. Double it up, double or nothing. Okay. Now it's safe to adhere this panel to the card base. Next, take this guy. I'll just add adhesive to this, and I think I'm going to go pretty generous because of the ribbon. And we can eyeball this centered. You can go off center, whatever you like. It's your own card as far as the styling goes. We have these lovely embroidered flowers. I think I'm going to use the bookbinding glue for this and just apply it into the stitched areas. I tried it with the ATG gun and it just doesn't want to stick. So this will definitely do the trick. I'll add the flower right here. And I did some variations of this assembly on the other cards, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. But first, let's take this sentiment here. And add it. One of the things you can do is take a strip that was left over from the trimming phase, and I'm gonna place it on the card so that I know where to end my glue line. I'll add this to my card. Trim off the little end. And then we have our sweet little birdie here. So I'll quick cut along the edge, and you can skip this part completely. The card is already done, but you know what? If I have the extra elements, in fact, when I did my the map, I call it my map that I send to Jacqueline, who designs everything according to the measurements I give her. If there's extra space, she fills it with things like this, and it's just a nice little bonus, but that's really all it is. If you like to save time, don't do this step. Just call it done. Get your grit sentiment inside as a single fold card, easy peasy. So, I can add my little birdie. Anchored by the strip. That is super cute. I'm not sure exactly what I did here. Oh, I put it in more toward the left. Oh, I like that too. That was nice. And then here we have our other one with the flower added, the birdie. Now on this one, I did a double, 2 ribbons going across, right? And secured at the back. Then I took a third piece of ribbon and tied it on to the initial 2 ribbons to kind of make them crisscross, and then I put the flower behind it. On the inside, you can see I've got my birdie perched, and then on this one I did the same thing. 2 pieces of ribbon going across, tied together with a third ribbon, added the embroidered flower in the background, and that is beautiful. There you go, 12 toile cards with the envelopes. All it will take is just a few more minutes for you to finish that final assembly and do that wherever you see fit. I also have a friend who does all kinds of extra things like die cutting and other shapes that she adds to the cards. The sky is the limit. Also, if you liked this toile kit, we do have a toile page kit as well, and you can also transform that toile kit into any number of projects with all of the plentiful instructions we have for immediate download at clubscrap.com. Take a moment to confirm that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any spoilers or fun projects or tutorials we're releasing here at Club Scrap. And speaking of Club Scrap, if you're not already a member, I invite you to become a part of our family. We would love to have you join us, and members save $8 on kits. It's a deal that can't be beat. I look forward to seeing you again in another workshop soon. Thank you for joining me.